Let me start by asking you, how many times have you rebuilt your business? Maybe you created a new niche, got a new offer, new strategy, hired a new mentor or coach, maybe a whole new brand. You looked at what wasn't working in your business, you made some changes, and you got excited again, and then you found yourself back in the same place 6 months later and wondering what you're missing, what went wrong. And nobody's talking about why. Hi there. My name is Dr. Chris Belfry, and I'm an embodiment coach. I was a former chiropractor, and I spent years trying to figure out why smart, skilled, committed coaches, practitioners, people who clearly had what it takes, kept hitting the same wall no matter what they did, what they changed. It turns out I was one of them. What I found changed everything about how I work and how I live today. In the next 45 to 60 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what's actually creating your ceiling and what it takes to finally break through for good. Let's get into it. Look, you're probably earning some money, you're showing up, you've hit some milestones, maybe even surpassed what you thought was even possible, and yet you flinch when money enters your account or leaves your account. You're afraid and avoid checking your numbers until it's urgent. You feel like you should feel free, but inside you really don't. You get momentum and then you go quiet. You get visible and then you pull back. You get close to the next goal, the next level, and it's something in you just pumps the brakes. And you've been told it's your messaging. Maybe you need a better funnel. It's your mindset. It's your niche. So you fix those things and the stealing is still there. Look, here's what nobody in the coaching industry wants to say out loud. The ceiling isn't your strategy. It's not your niche. It's not your funnel. The ceiling is you. And it's not because you're broken. It's not because you're not good enough. It's not because what you're doing isn't right. But because there's something running underneath of all of it that regardless if you rebrand or you mastermind it, no offer has ever going to touch this. And when I say ceiling, I want to be specific about what I mean. It's not that you stop growing entirely. It's just that you keep arriving back at the same invisible lines. You're the same income, the same amount of clients, the same level of visibility, the same impact, the same depth of your impact. You push against it, you might break it through a little bit temporarily, only to revert back. It's that launch that almost hit the goal, but didn't. It's that client roster that gets to a certain number and stalls. It's that version of you that shows up online versus the version you that you know exists, but you can't quite sustain that. It's that pattern you almost name, but can't quite shake. The ceiling isn't a wall that you can see. It's a pull you keep feeling. And it's the reason it's so hard to break through. And because it doesn't live in your strategy, it lives within your nervous system. And that's really what you're going to talk about today. When you think about invisible walls, what we're talking about here, and here you are. Right? And this is your comfort zone. We all heard this. Right? And we live within this comfort zone. Here's your invisible walls. If you think you're worth 100K, regardless of the funnels, the changes of your niche, your strategy, you're going to keep reverting back to that 100K. If you don't feel deserving of getting 5,000 a month or deserving that high ticket client to even get to 5,000 K a month, then you're going to hit these walls. And this is what we're talking about, your ceiling. No one's immune to these set points or the ceilings, right? And this comfort zone, just like we might have seen it with weight loss, where people, do everything to lose weight only to return back to that regular point that they're at. So maybe they're weighing 150 pounds, they lose 30 pounds, and then 6 months, a year later, they're back to their 150. This happens in all areas. So it's not just from a financial standpoint or from a business standpoint. And it impacted me as well. I need to tell you something about my own journey because maybe you can relate. Maybe something sounds familiar for you. Look, I spent years going from coach to coach. I spent over $50,000 on various coaches and programs. I've tried different strategies from what they recommend to what I've seen online. I've studied various coaching strategies. I've changed my niche. And every time I'd find someone who seemed to have the answer, I'm all in. I'd implement. I'd show up. I'd make the changes. And here's one thing. The strategies did work. The people in the communities, they got real results. Clients were transforming. They were having success. The feedback was incredible. Yet, my ceiling stayed exactly in the same place. And I couldn't figure this out for the life of me. I had the skills. I had amazing results. I had proof. But something kept pulling me back every time I got close to that next level. I'd get invisible and then I'd go quiet. I'd get momentum and then I'd self-sabotage myself. I'd get close to a breakthrough and then somehow find a way to blow it up and have to walk away. I told myself I was in the wrong niche, so I'm going to try something different. I thought it was maybe my wrong messaging, a wrong platform, wrong mentor, wrong coach. So I'd rebuild and the ceiling would follow me to the next adventure, to the next journey, to the next business. It followed me through every version of my business because it had nothing to do with my business. I went back to where it actually started, and it wasn't my business at all. It wasn't even my adult life. It started as a kid, watching my parents struggle with money and having tons of stress around money, watching the tension in the room when bills came up, learning without really ever knowing or them ever saying a word that money meant pressure, that abundance wasn't safe, that there wasn't always enough. I absorbed all of it. Kids do, not consciously, but through the nervous system, through repeated exposure to what adults around them feel. So before long, I ran this into every aspect of my life. In business, before I even made an offer or launched a program, my body had already a blueprint. Money equals stress. Visibility, risk. Having too much means something bad is coming along. And at 13, I was in a serious car accident that nearly killed me, and whatever I was already being wired in got locked in. A kid who learned at the moment that the world wasn't safe. My body wasn't safe. And being seen meant being vulnerable to something terrible might go wrong with me or my business. That kid built a set point, a baseline of what felt normal to him, a comfort zone. What felt similar and that set point followed me through every coaching call, every launch, every moment I got close to something bigger. Then that kid believed he was not allowed to have. He wasn't good enough. He didn't deserve it. The strategies weren't the problem. I was running every strategy through the nervous system that was still trying to keep this kid safe. And that's what no one's talking about. And so if you think about it, really, when it comes to back to our board here, just think when you get into a coaching call, when you're creating a message, when you're creating content online, and if that message comes, and here's the people, if that message comes from a place of not worthy, not good enough, undeserving. So if you go and ask for 5K, but you don't feel you're worth 5K, if you have content that you're programming of thinking like, am I good at what I do? Can I do what I do? Or any other story or belief or pattern that you've created, what do you think is being felt on the people that's hearing these messages? Well, they're hearing that you're not good enough. They're hearing you're not deserving. They're hearing, does he know what he's doing? He's hearing whatever is that you're feeling is radiating. Just like I was picking up on my parents, you bring that energy into every single coaching call, live events, even into the content you write. So it's really getting clear on that content, right? And that messaging, where does that come from? What space, what version of you, what comfort zone are you writing this from? So this really isn't just some kind of simple mindset issue where you can fake it till you make it or some other simple mindset hack that'll fix it. This is actually a body issue. The body keeps the ceiling. It stores it within your nervous system. And here's what you really want to understand, and what I really want to land for you. Your childhood didn't just shape your memories, it shaped your nervous system. And the nervous system's definition of what it feels is normal, what it feels is safe, what's allowed. And that became the definition of your set point, your ceiling, almost like a thermostat, similar to what we talked about earlier with your weight set point, right? That whole system is constantly trying to return to. So you, like we talked about weight, you go up and go back down, right? So it's similar. You can crank the heat with your thermostat. You can hustle harder. You can think bigger, hire another coach or mentor, consume more content, get another course to work through, but until you actually change the thermostat itself, the system's going to continue to correct itself back to what's normal or safe every single time. And that's not really weakness. That's not lack of discipline on your part. That's the nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do, what is safe. And it's going to keep it in that range every single time because that's what it knows. And here's where coaches feel this without ever recognizing it for what it really is. It's some kind of ceiling. It's stored, right? So just think of about a visibility ceiling. You build up momentum and then you go quiet. You start to show up and you show up consistently and then disappear for a few weeks. You get an audience growing and something pulls you back right when it starts to matter. You tell yourself you're burned out. You need to think. You need to refine your message. You need a better funnel system. You need a different strategy. But the truth is your nervous system just got triggered. Being seen felt dangerous, and it learned all along that that's not okay. And it reverts back to what was safe. There's the income ceiling. You're doing well. You're earning money. You're showing up. You've hit milestones, maybe some you didn't think you were even possible. And yet you find yourself still flinching when you think about money. You get tight. You get anxious when money leaves your account. You go to Costco and you have to pay a big bill, or you have an issue with your car, and you got to go to the mechanic, and the bill is high, and there's this heaviness, a density, there's this fear, or all these feelings that might go through your mind. You may avoid checking your numbers until it's urgent, whether that's your numbers within your business of how you're doing or your bank account numbers. You feel like you should be free, but you don't. That's not because you're bad with money. That's not because your body still doesn't feel. It's really because your body doesn't feel safe with money. And the crazy thing is, this isn't just for just you. This is a across the board. Millionaires. There's research that millionaires who have millions of dollars still don't feel safe with the amount of money that they have. So you might look at, having $6, $7, $8 million, you'd be like, wow, if I could only have that. Some of these people with $6, $7, $8 million still don't feel safe with that much money. And so your baseline is built with your environment where money was inconsistent, where rest meant risk, where overflow meant guilt or conflict or pressure, right? So then when you are having success, that success feels dangerous. So you want financial freedom, but your nervous system still associates money with chaos, abandonment, or pressure. And so you may have developed these beliefs around money that are common, that you may have even worked through. Money is the root of all evil. Monies don't grow on trees, right? Those are simple beliefs that we created, and you might have done the work around those. I know I've been there. I've taken, the various workshops, the millionaire mindset or the millionaire mind, right? And in the end, I cleared those beliefs, but my nervous system never changed. That's the deeper work why people still aren't hitting the ceiling that they really are choosing to, or are hitting a ceiling in general. So overall, you are unconsciously overspending. Maybe you're overgiving. Maybe you're not bringing in what you really truly deserve. You're over controlling yourself, not because you're broken, because you're doing exactly what your wiring tells you is safe. You can't out earn your nervous system wired for survival. So until the body resets to what it calls safe, right? The ceiling doesn't move. It just shows up in a new income bracket, right? So again, it's really not just, if we want to go back to our board here, so it's really just pushing the ceiling outwards. So if 100K is your max, what you believe is pushing this income bracket or your box ceiling higher. So maybe now it's 250K or 500K, right? So it's really understanding that. There's also the impact ceiling. And with this one, you stay under the radar. So you often soften your message right when it starts to really get sharp or to land with people. You hold back something you actually want to say. You play smaller than you feel you're worthy of. Not because you don't believe in yourself or believe in your work. It's because somewhere in you there's a very old belief that being too much, too visible, too loud means rejection, means being cut down. And this one hits hard for me as well. Being rejected was a huge issue, so I kept my message safe. I was doing amazing work, but I didn't really believe in my abilities or feel safe, because every time someone wouldn't get better, or sometimes I thought they didn't get better, I was focusing on that. And so we talked about mirroring this energy. Well, I was focusing on these people that weren't getting better. Maybe say out of 100, 2 people wouldn't get better, or some of them wouldn't come back. I'm assuming they're not getting better. Or there might have been 1 or 2 that I'm seeing longer than I was expecting. And all my energy was there thinking like, am I good enough? Can I do this? And totally not thinking about the miracles of the 90 people that were amazed with the results, with what I've done. And so what happens to my energy is the next client shows up and they're feeling that nervous energy of not good enough. And what results? It would start to compound in my practice, in my work, and in my clients. And that would perpetuate my energy outwards. So I wasn't bringing in the income, the desire. So I was hitting not just my visibility ceiling, but it was also hitting my income ceiling. So all this, really means you're losing the belonging you've been holding on to, of what I was holding on to. So what most people do, which I was doing, was I was shrinking, not consciously again. This is all unconscious, but I did it consistently, and so do most. And here's what all 3 of these ceilings have in common. None of them are mindset problems. You can't think your way out of this problem. You can't think your way of a body problem. And any way out really is because none of it lives within your thoughts. It lives in your body, in your nervous system, in the wiring that was laid down way before you had any say in it. And that's the real ceiling. And that's why fixing the strategy never fixes the problem. Fixing your funnel never fixes the issue. Changing content, changing your niche, getting a new coach, hiring a new coach never fixes the problem. But we'll do that today. So what does it actually take to break through? Well, if the ceiling or your ceiling lives in the body, the work has to happen in the body. Not another strategy or changing your niche or another funnel is going to make a difference. These are all layered on top of an unregulated nervous system. So it's not going to be another mindset trick or mindset reframe, because none of those ever stick. It's not going to be another program or technique that gives you the tools yet leaves you still wondering why you still can't use them. Real alignment, real change, the kind that actually sticks and holds, isn't something you can think your way out of. It's something your body has to feel in order to feel safe. Your nervous system has to experience expansion without threat, without it pulling back and pulling you back to where your reset point is. And here that is how it actually happens. It happens at 3 levels. The first level, or level 1, would be you have to recognize. You have to start to see the patterns for what they truly are. Know that it's not a character flaw. It's not a problem that you've occurred. It's not a discipline problem that you've been thinking you're experiencing. It's not proof that you're not cut out for this. The ceiling is a survival response. It's a normal response within the nervous system. When you stop consciously trying to think about it and you start to get curious about it, everything starts to change. Ask yourself questions. Where do I keep ending up? Why do I keep ending up this way? What does it feel like in my body before I pull back? That's the starting entry point, curiosity. So it's asking questions. And this could be even a journal response where you start to ask questions and get more curious as to where this is deeper, right? You got to get asked questions and get curious. And this is a simple journal process even, right? Like I said, and just start to get curious. What's there? What am I holding on to? When it happens, or when you think of something like, where is the restriction? Those are the patterns that you want to start to notice. Level 2. Level 2 is the release portion. This is where most personal development work stops short, because pattern work is great. They notice the patterns, but it's actually more than just recognizing those patterns. You have to actually start to notice and feel them in the body. The stored experience. This is where the difference occurs. The thing that created the wiring in the first place. These are all held within your body. And that's why it's a felt experience. It has to be addressed at that level. Not talked about, not reframed, released. And when that happens, the nervous system starts treating you and expanding. And not this as expanding as a threat, because the threat is no longer living in the tissue, right? So the threat that you've experienced, maybe not feeling worthy, is the threat. And so as you start to expand, you start to notice, oh, normally you would start to collapse. And once you start to work through and start to feel those feelings, those collapse, and then you start to push those limits, and it's a natural progress. It's a natural feeling to move beyond. I've had clients where, they've always wanted to ask their boss for a raise, but they felt they weren't good enough, or the story wasn't there, or they weren't worthy of that. And so they never asked for that raise. Once we've done the work, it's a normal reaction to them. They're like, okay, it's time for a raise. And they go and ask for what they want. And it's not even just within, a work setting. It could be in any setting of you starting to ask, because you're more grounded, you're more calm, and you know exactly what you wanted. But that point of that's holding you back is what's stopping you from moving forward. All right, level 3. Level 3 is to rewire. So once there's the space, you need to build a new set point. And this is done through repeated experiences. That be at the edge of the expansion. So once you get to the ceiling, you kind of start to work out, and as it goes beyond, and that's where you start to really expand. And through this repeated experience, and to be at the edge of that expansion, where you start to see that safety is there. This is the identity shifts. So it's not from deciding to be different, but from the body learning that it's safe to be different. So it's not a fake it till you make it. It's knowing that it's safe as you step forward and then moving forward. So I've watched coaches go through this process and become unrecognizable, not just in their business, but in how they carry themselves, how they show up, how they speak to people, how the ceiling doesn't just move, it just disappears. Because the person who needed it is gone. And that's the difference. So as you start to go, it's the story's gone. As I was talking about asking for a raise, you're able to shift, you're able to move, because the story, the pattern that you have is gone. It's like it's no longer there, and you're acting from that new place. And it's similarly bringing in your energy. Your energy, as we talked about for mirroring, as you start to mirror, you start to mirror this new identity of who you are, who feels worthy, who feels successful, who can feel safe holding 25K or whatever that desire is, right? And as you expand that box, that's the difference. That's where safety occurs, and that's where you have to make a difference at. All right, in this section, I really want you to experience something here. I want you to get an experience out of this talk, if anything else. I want you to notice things in your body once we start talking about things like money. And so you can see the difference and experience something within our story. But before we get into that, we have to start thinking about some things, right? Let's start talking about money and how do we feel about money? Some simple things around beliefs, some of these beliefs that we have about money. Mostly, most of them really aren't even yours. You didn't come into this world believing that money was dangerous or dirty, right? These are things that we've created. You didn't decide as a baby that you weren't worthy of abundance. You didn't choose to feel guilty when you had too much money or anxious if you didn't have any money or not enough money. These are inherited beliefs. These are things you heard around the dinner table. Maybe you felt it in the silence when bills came in and your parents had to pay them. You learned in phrases that got repeated so many times that they became truth. The ones we've always heard. Money is the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford that. Who do you think you are? Right? These are some of the common ones you might hear. And these are the ones that we say mostly out loud. It's the deeper ones, the ones that most, techniques and personal growth don't get into. These are some of the ones that are more deeper, that are causing the deeper roots. They're absorbed in the body through watching, through feeling, through our environment, right? And particularly maybe when it comes to money, where money, you might have felt the weight of the money or the stress or conflict or shame or around money, or the feeling the scarcity around money. And somewhere along the way, you picked them up within your nervous system, and it's been slowly, quietly running in the background ever since. Some of the common ones that you have to work really hard for yourself or work yourself to the bone to deserve it. That wanting more makes you greedy, or being a spiritual person and being wealthy is a no-no. That people like you don't have that kind of money. That if you have it, something will go wrong, someone will take it, it won't last, right? Just like people that win the lottery to go broke within 3 years. Maybe you feel like you're not enough or worthy of money. You're not the kind of person that gets to have that financial freedom without paying the kind of that price that it is. Those are the beliefs in your body right now. And these are what the ceiling that you're creating for yourself. So I want to take a few minutes just to let your nervous system feel it. Not fix it, not frame it, not a fake it till you make it. Just start to bring it to light. I want you to just start to experience it in your body. So let's take a moment and just close your eyes. Get comfortable, right? Maybe take a couple natural breaths just to kind of let yourself get into the moment. Quiet your mind. Maybe you gotta take a big bucket and just scoop up all your thoughts of today. Any feelings you're having, just let them float away. Take that bucket and toss it into the universe. So just so you can be in the total here and now. Just start to take some natural breaths in and out. Just trying to get your breath as deep as you can. So just start to feel your breath in your chest rise and fall. In the next exhalation, try to get that breath even deeper and feel your belly rise and fall. If you can, try to get that breath even deeper down in your sacrum there, into your sexual organs, your digestive area, right? Just breathe in and out. Try to get that breath as deep as you can. With every breath, you just become more and more relaxed. So just start to feel your shoulders relax. Good. I just want you to move into your heart and feel your heart. And inside there, your heart, maybe you notice a presence, an awareness, maybe a white light or goldish light. And just notice that presence and just fall into it and notice it. And just notice how calming it is. Just all we have is now in that moment. It's that essence of who you are, right? And in this moment, there's no past, there's no present. And I want you just to start to listen to some questions. Maybe you have it on your own. I want you just to think about Where in your business is stuck? What kind of ceilings are you having? I'll ask some questions, and if they resonate, just start to notice, where do you feel those in your body? Right? And maybe there's something in yourself now of where you're stuck. Maybe it's a certain dollar figure that you're stuck at that you can't seem to ever get past. Maybe you're always constantly redoing your content because it's never good enough or it's never the right message. Maybe you're in a context of always changing something in your business that doesn't ever seem quite right. And just start to notice when you think of those things, when you say them, where do you feel those in your body? That's what I just want you to start to notice. What did money mean in the house when you grew up? Start to play a story, just remember back, and then notice how you feel in your body. Notice how it changes. Maybe things get heavy or dense. Maybe there's some color or some sensations you start to feel in your throat or your heart, or maybe you feel in your gut or your abdomen. What did you hear about money growing up? And what did you feel but never hear what is said out loud? What did the adults around you believe about people who had a lot of money? What do you believe you have to be, do, or sacrifice to deserve the financial freedom you're desiring? Again, as I ask those questions or anything that you're feeling, just notice in your body. Where are you feeling it? Where's the heaviness, the density? Where's the restriction coming from? Where in your life have you worked hard, got close to something, and then just watched it slip away or pushed away by yourself even? Where someone tangibly took it from you? And just notice if that relates in any way. Notice how you feel that in your body. What do you see, feel, or hear in your body? Maybe it shows up as a story, a projection. No judgment, just notice. What does a part of you believe will happen if you actually have everything you want? So as you think of what you truly desire, what you truly want, what does that look like? Thinking of but notice what changes in your body. Does it hit? Do you feel that in your body? Is there a sensation? Is there a density, right? Is there a heaviness that you feel when you think of that? Do you actually believe you are the kind of person who gets to have this? Whatever this is, again, what do you notice? What do you see? What would it mean about you if you became truly wealthy? And does any part of you believe that that's wrong? Who would you have to stop being to allow yourself to have more? Start to ask, notice. Again, just keep noticing. Maybe there's nothing, but likely this is triggering something, some kind of heaviness, density, color, shape, resistance in your body that you actually feel. So again, where do you feel this money stress in your body right now? Just noticing it. No judgment, no fixing. You're simply noticing, bringing awareness to it. For the longest time, you've had this this knowing, but you never felt it. That's all we're doing. And what does your body do when you think about having more than enough? Do you start to see expansion, or does it tighten up? Is there a heaviness? Just start to notice, right? Good. So just slowly bring your awareness back to the room. And that's the exercise I just wanted to run you through, right? So there's a process. Once we realize that you're holding on to those, you actually feel those in your body, right? And so this is no different than, when I work with people dealing with anger, right? You can feel, you sense the anger in your body. When you get your body tightens up instead of being open and wide, you get closed off, and that happens with anger or worry. You feel those things in your body, and it's just learning to how to let that go, and it's a great stuff. So those are great tools to notice. These are things you're holding on to within your body. All right, in closing, obviously our talk today, you realize that your ceiling was never really about your business. And before I go, I want to leave you with a few things. I want you to know that you're not behind. So wherever you're at is perfect. You're not broken, so there's nothing you need to fix. You're not missing the strategy that's finally going to make everything just click like that. It's not another funnel that's like that you need, or another coach. Trust me, I've been there. I've spent thousands, tens of thousands of dollars thinking, oh, it's the next person, it's this. At some point, you have to realize you're the common denominator in all those stories. But positively, I want you to know you're deeply skilled at what you do. You are a great coach. You're great at what you do. You're a committed coach running everything, but they're running through a nervous system that was wired for a world that no longer exists for you. It's a world where it wasn't safe to be seen, where success felt dangerous, where staying small felt like survival mode. And that wiring served you. It kept you safe when you needed it to, right? In a world where there might have been chaos or, who knows, right? And we create this for our own survival, and it feels safe. That's why we call it our comfort zone. But it's your ceiling now, right? And the coaches who break through aren't the ones who find the perfect strategy. They're not the ones that have the perfect funnel. They're not the ones that, have a great email list or whatever. It's really the ones who are wired differently. They stop letting that old nervous system run their new vision. And you see that people that have success can shift to a new niche or a new business and have success in that business. It's a wiring situation. You might see someone who you could see within society, a family who has success, have successful children. They're like, oh, it's because their money bought them that. No, they're wired that way, right? No different than people in poverty. And obviously we have, there's the odd exception, but for the majority, you see that, right? And it's because of a wiring system, because of a pattern, a childhood pattern that we have, and we're running that pattern as an adult. And the ceiling was never out there. You have to get that it's not outside of yourself. And that's why you don't need another funnel. You don't need another coach. You don't need another niche, right? It was always in here. It's always been a nervous system problem. And the moment your body finally feels safe enough to let you have what you've been working for, everything changes, right? The one thing you really want to walk away with today, and what we talked about is just kind of attach a little bit of what we talked about in our meditation, is start to get curious and identify patterns that you have, identify your beliefs. A lot of times we're running in robot mode. We're never really clear of what we want or desire, because it's what we want is run through a filter of what we believe we can have. So it's easy to say, I want $25K a month, but inside our internal nervous system can't handle $5,000. So how could we handle $10,000 or $25,000? So sure, you might have a month where you get 10,000, only go back to having a regular 4,000 a month, right? It's your nervous system that's the thermostat that we talked about. And this one, so when we start to identify the patterns that we talked, like in your visibility pattern, your income pattern, and your income pattern, these are the ones that show up most, start to notice, the ones that show up most consistently for you. And then start to get curious as to why, where are you holding on to that? What we did in our meditation, right? So what does my body do right before you pull back, right? And we get a little bit deeper in our questions. Not what do I think, but what do I feel, right? And that's the idea of that switch, and start to journal those types of things, right? These are great tools, whether in a meditation or journal. And this is where the work starts. That's where the ceiling lives, and that's where it's going to take to break it. So if this landed with you at any level and you want to go deeper, this is exactly what I do in my one-on-one work. I take people through a simple 3-step process to help them identify not just money blocks, but blocks in general, so they start to see changes, improvements in their relationships, in their career or business, and all sorts of different levels. It's really phenomenal. So if you want to explore that and start to notice different changes or the ceilings where you have, what restrictions you have, and you want to increase that ceiling, increase that comfort zone, I invite you just to reach out or to follow for more information or get more information at my website. It's www.belfrywellness.com. So that's www.belfrywellness.com. Have a great rest of your evening or great rest of your day, however you are watching this. I appreciate you watching to the end and enjoy the other speakers.